The Open Space Conservation Grant is funded through the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act of 2022. The opportunity supports the governor's 30 by 30 climate goal to conserve 30% of New York's lands and waters by 2030. The focus of the awarded projects will be to protect air and water quality, provide habitat connectivity, preserve diverse ecosystems, mitigate the impacts of climate change, provide equitable access to open space and recreational opportunities, and/or promote resilient communities.
Hold on a minute, Maria. We're having some technical difficulties and all our screens just went off.
Oh, there they go.
Now they're back.
We're back.
We're good.
Everyone good? Okay. Thank you. It gave me a chance to catch my breath anyway. So some quick facts about the grant. The maximum award amount for this grant is $3.5 million per project, and the minimum award amount is $50,000. There is no town match for this grant. The grant team for this opportunity doesn't follow our established and successful method of team creation. The core group, an external group, consists of Garrett Wagner, Diana Davis, and Ben Wisniewski. The advisory group consists of town staff, including Chris Bilo and Maria Dewar, and Friends of Webster Trails. The core group have been part of this application from the beginning, and as a result are more intimate with the initiatives and application progress. For that reason, I see Diana Davis. Is Ben here?
Ben's out of town.
Okay, so I have Diana Davis here tonight and available for any questions at the conclusion of this presentation as it relates to the grant application. Also, if needed, Chris Bilo will be able to answer any additional questions as they pertain to the town's perspective of the proposed sites. The grant is unique in that rather than a general reimbursement model, which is our typical grant model, this grant is following a performance-based model, meaning that the funds do not need to be expended before payment is sent. With this model, funding will precede deliverables and are based on estimates. There are 4 interim payments and 1 final payment. From this chart, you can see what those payments cover. With that being stated, there may be situations or expenses that need to be paid before the prescribed timeline of disbursement releases funds. As an example, a surveyor completing the survey as agreed, but needs payment before the funds are released 3 to 6 months after the contract is signed. So there may be occasions where the town is expending money before it's being, the funds are released. The funding, if awarded for this grant, is eligible to cover the following costs: fee purchase price supported by an appraisal in the DEC's preferred format, other costs such as attorney fees, title report, value of appraisals, survey, and boundary line marking completed by a professional land surveyor, Phase 1 environmental study, title insurance, recording fees, conservation defense insurance for land trust only, and seller's tax proration at the time of sale. Site preparation includes site preparation and cleanup. Post-sale and under $100,000 is covered by the grant. 2 properties have been identified as appropriate to pursue for this round of funding. Option 1, 9595 5 Mile Line Road, and option 2 is 799 Holt Road. At the beginning of this presentation, I outlined areas of focus for the Open Space Conservation Grant opportunity. The identified properties align with the grant areas of focus as follows. Property 1, 9595 5 Mile Line Road, aligns with at least 3 areas of focus. Area 1 preserves habitat connectivity. This property serves as a key node within the broader network of wooded corridors linking inland habitats to Irondequoit Bay, enabling species movement, breeding, and long-term ecosystem stability. Area 2 preserves diverse ecosystems. The parcel functions as a complete ecosystem consisting of a mix of Jersey accent doesn't allow me to say that word, and evergreen forest, meadow, pond, creek, and wetland features, including Shipbuilders Creek and its associated floodplain. Its identification as a priority acquisition parcel in both the town's 2001 and 2022 open space green prints further underscores its strategic importance in preserving ecological function within the fragmented landscape. And finally, Area 3 that this property aligns with is provided equitable access to open space and recreational areas. This site offers immediate community benefit through its existing trail network, multiple access points, and proximity to residential neighborhoods and the Route 104 bike path. Option 2, 799 Holt Road aligns with at least two areas of focus. Area 1 preserves diverse ecosystems. The property's forest canopy and permeable landscape contribute to carbon sequestration, temperature moderation, and stormwater management, while the wetland and floodplain areas provide natural flood mitigation and water quality protection. Area 2 provide equitable access to open space and recreational areas. Its proximity to Charles E. Sexton Park and linkage through existing bike infrastructure to additional areas of the town transform the site from an isolated parcel into a critical connector between ecological assets and residential neighborhoods. Land purchased with this type of grant are typically subject to conservation easement and deed restriction, which acts as a permanent legal constraint on future development. The focus is on public access, conservation, and open space, which includes hiking trails, small agricultural buildings, and conservation-related improvements. The next steps that need to be taken are, first, confirm the selection of properties to include in the application. Option 1, apply for 9595 Mile Line Road only. Option 2, apply for 799 Holt Road only. Option 3, select both properties and submit two separate applications, which we are allowed to do for this grant. You can have up to two separate applications. And final step, vote aye for the upcoming resolution to authorize submission. Are there any questions?
No, thank you, Diana and team, Garrett, for bringing this to us and all the research that you have done. Appreciate it.
I got a couple questions for Diana, if you want to step up to the microphone. Yeah, yes, you know.
Hello. I would just like to say I noticed the succulent has migrated, but happy to see it's still there.
So Diana, just some additional background for everybody here.
Sure.
What was the process that was used to identify these two parcels versus everything that's on the list?
Yeah, so what's really great about these two parcels is, as Maria indicated, they're both actually on the 2001 and the 2022 green print. So they've kind of long been sort of on the radar, right, of Webster for, potential acquisitions. And for the purposes of this grant, what we did is we took a look at the green print and the existing open space inventory, right, that the town has, and identified, a handful of parcels, right, that we thought, that obviously, right, fit the grant terms and were really good for the grant in its conservation emphasis. And of that handful, these two parcels, and, it actually was kismet because you can apply for a maximum of two. These two parcels had landowners that were very interested in participating in the grant program, and landowner willingness has historically really been kind of the hurdle, right? So check that box. That was, just worked right out. So, yeah.
And then how was the grant application designed to have the two properties address access, connectivity in tandem, but also not totally limiting the town's future use for them? Because that's that balancing act of like,
Yep.
The grant gives us this, but we don't want to give up full access.
Yep.
It's a conversation we had with Chris from the Parks Department. Of,
Yep.
We don't want to shoestrings ourselves
Right.
too tight of a box.
Yeah. So exactly that. So there's a couple questions in there. So the first one would be, it's interesting, but even though the DEC, right, for the purposes of the grant, considers each application as a standalone, you're not, it's not sort of choosing between the two, for instance, right? Everything is rank ordered. What we've actually been able to do is build in some language which strengthens the application as a whole by emphasizing the connectivity of those two parcels via the 104 bike path, right? So you can get down to the 104 bike path from the Holt Road parcel, obviously via, Hojack and then down through, but also that, I'm thinking Abigail Way, right? So you can come onto it via Hard and also obviously via Holt. And then obviously Coons is right next to the 104 bike path. So it's a really nice kind of little zoop, kind of thing.
Nice
Yeah.
sound effect there.
There was part of your question. Okay, so I answered the connectivity part. Oh, yes. And the grant language, we're being very careful to not kind of box ourselves in and really emphasize, active recreation. So, leaving ourselves open, potentiality in the future for, as much, whatever the range of uses that were allowed for both of those. Yeah.
And then this is more of a takeaway statement of the nice thing about this grant, it's a 3-year cycle. So we did 2 properties this year. If we identify 2 with 2 willing landlords next year, that's 2 more. And we after that 2 more. So we have the opportunity to apply for 6 properties over 3 years with 100% state funding.
Yeah. It's a great program. It really is. I mean, I'm excited about it. So,
Thank you.
okay.
I have a question about the Coons' farm. How much, can we pull up the map for it? Because we have to subdivide that afterwards, right? We're not taking
Yep.
it home?
And so basically it's one tax parcel, but it's 2 different lots, and it would be the majority of that front lot, which is technically called Lot 2. And we basically double checked with the DEC that subdivision does not have to take place prior to grant application. It's actually a common question that they received because a lot of people are in a similar, as you can imagine, right? A similar situation. So that subdivision, should we receive the grant, would take place after being awarded the grant.
Okay, and then with that, the subdivision includes his home and the actual tree farm, the barn?
So it doesn't include the barn, okay? So you can see basically where that green line is. Everything that's on that image would be what we are seeking the grant funding for. And the appraisal that's currently being done is for that portion of the lot.
Okay, so we will have access to the
Yes,
property. From
yes,
5
you
Mile
actually
Line.
have access from 5 Mile straight into that front portion of the parcel. You don't have to go in through the barn. Well, you wouldn't go in through the barn, but you know what I mean. And you'd also have pedestrian access potentially from the end of Gaywood Lane, as well as potentially you could build something even in from Patty Lane as well. So it'd really be a kind of 3-pronged access.
And Alex, to clarify, both parcels would be subdivided upon grant awarding.
Okay.
And that subdivision would be paid for with the grant funding as well.
Yep.
So the DC's been very flexible on this of like allowing that of like, you can wait to subdivide, we'll pay for it. Which for a grant is pretty nice, that degree of flexibility and kicking the can down the road versus making us commit to it now than later.
Yep.
No, I would agree. I just want to make sure we have access because when I heard we were going to subdivide his barn, and I'm like, hold on, where?
No.
Because otherwise we'd have to go by your house and put a big parking lot right.
The barn is staying. The barn is not going to be a part of the, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we all love the Christmas shop, so I think that's important.
So the grant is performance-based, and I understand, so there's 4 different kind of tiers to when we get the payment.
4
Is
different
there-
stages, correct. But what's really great about these parcels is that a lot of the stuff that's secondary costs, they've actually already been done prior to. So, I mean, like surveys, appraisals, things of that nature that are the more expensive end of the secondary costs are already done. So it, not only does it count in our favor for purposes of the grant application, because you're scored on a couple of different components for that, but obviously also that, mitigates any, extra work and down the line. So that's good.
Okay, and hopefully the risks that might go with each section, like we're not going to get through the first 2 stages and then they're going to
No.
cut off payment at stage 3.
No,
Okay.
no. Once you get awarded and once you're locked in, basically, yes, to that, you're
And
guaranteed.
like, to clarify, Nick, with that, stages 1 and 2, those are mainly reimbursing the small cost the secondary and third appraisal,
Yep.
some of the legal fees. Stage 3 is the bulk of the funding for the property.
Yep.
Sure.
So up till stage 3, when that comes, both the property owner and the town get to say, I finally want to commit. If something happens, worst case, you have up to that point to
To
say,
back out.
we're both going to
Yeah.
Okay.
go our ways. So that's what, once again, watching the DCA, they've really tried to make this like non-committal up to that point. Once obviously they give you the money to buy the land, then you're in.
Yeah.
You've crossed that point of no return.
I love the idea. Can I ask just one question?
Sure.
This might be more of a Josh question. Just in terms of how this project might play into the overall comprehensive plan, has there been any thought about how that might play in?
Well, I haven't really been brought fully up to speed on what the intent of these two locations would be for. Obviously, they're centrally located parcels within town. But again, we have not been part of the conversation, so I don't really know how to answer that question.
Well, I think if we had any opportunity to buy open space, we should most certainly take advantage of it. And if there's grant money available, we should definitely move in that direction. I haven't been in the loop on this, but I can imagine that your team has put a lot of hours into this. I
Yes.
can tell just by your responses that you're very knowledgeable of this grant project, and again, I greatly appreciate it.
Sure thing.
All right, Dana, last question for you. You ready?
I think so.
What is the current projected date where the state, which obviously can change, says they'll get back to us?
So this is an interesting question. It's the summer because their projection of when they were going to award the grants, when the grant due date was January 15th, was spring 2026. So now, given this is due date April 20, basically add 3 months, right? So instead of spring 2026, it'll be summer 2026 when we find out. So we'll know pretty quick.
Thank you.
Jen, anything?
Chris and I had a conversation about the active recreation. I do think the active recreation is a very important
Definitely.
part
Yep.
of this.
Yep.
Because there are so many sports and so many
Mhm.
teams, and fields
Yep.
are a premium. So not having that flexibility to potentially leverage one, or
Yep.
I think the other one not so much, but
Yeah.
the 5 Mile Line
Mhm.
to have fields for sports teams would be very important.
Yeah, we talked about, Chris and I as well, the size of the parcel being as it is and the way that it's kind of laid out. You've still got plenty of, wooded habitat in the back. That even before that first big tree line, there's a lot of space on that parcel. It really is like a TARDIS. It's Doctor Who reference. I don't know. Okay.
You want to quit when you're ahead there on the jokes. though.
Oh, all right.
Some of us like nerd stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a sonic screwdriver somewhere at my house.
There you go.
Anything else, guys?
Nope. I appreciate it.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Anna.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Before we close the workshop, I am going to make a motion and move for executive session before the end of the workshop pertaining to open meetings laws 105(1)D for potential litigation. I would like to invite the town board, our town clerk, our town attorney, and Josh Artuzo. If you guys would join me in the room aside over there. Thank you.
Do you need a motion in a second?